Chapter 81. You are listening at Mtlnovel.audio. A light dragon? You looked surprised. Those are top-tier dragons, like, really top-tier. A fully grown one is as strong as a golden demigod. About the same as a four-winged angel, they're basically the light family's golden child. That's right. My target is a light dragon corpse. You can keep any light energy crystals you find inside. Venus said calmly. How many people did you find? Liu asked, curious. This goddess of light must be a demigod, at least, and she can still hide it so well. She's probably a golden demigod, maybe even, one of the best. Being a golden demigod means you can try to ignite the divine fire, but the more you refine your divine body and soul, the better your chances. Even if you're a 9-turn demigod, you still need a ton of treasure to even have a shot at lighting that fire and raising your kingdom into the sky. Becoming a god is hard. Not many, just 3, including you. Venus's voice was flat. Why me? Liu was curious. Gut feeling. Venus replied, Liu. That's divine intuition for you. Still, this is the world of gods. He eyed Venus again, surprised. Could this goddess of light have some kind of special talent? Venus waved her hand. She pulled out a huge chunk of light energy crystal. Here's 1,000 kilograms. That's worth 1,000 kilograms of mithril. Liu didn't object. Deal. The year was almost over. He'd been busy fighting all year. Before he knew it, his warehouse was overflowing with mithril again, way more than before, too, a total of 5,400 kilograms. He was shocked. Turns out, it was all thanks to his second god, Pierce. The priest he controlled was a priest of refinement. The Grey Dwarves who believed in him were refining mithril super fast, twice as fast as the Edge Tribe's dwarves. Once the deal was done, they left without another word. Liu didn't go straight back to his god's domain. He went to a shop run by a true god whose thing was agriculture. What do you need? The human maid in the shop smiled. 10,000 level 4 dragon's blood bred trees. Liu said, dragon's blood bred trees. The seeds are soaked in special dragon blood. The bread they produce is great for creatures below level 4, eating it regularly will strengthen their bodies, it can even help them level up, and they produce a lot. Each tree produces thousands of kilograms of bread 4 times a year, 10,000 trees. That's enough for even the biggest eaters, like orcs. He planned to speed up time again and use his divine power to boost his believers. It's a better deal. Plus, he wanted to hit 6 turns as fast as possible. But once he did, the range of his god's domain would expand, which means time acceleration would cost way more. One moment, please. The maid bowed. She quickly returned with a space ring and handed it to Liu. Please check it over. Liu looked it over. Once he confirmed it was right, he paid. 10,000 dragon's blood bred trees cost 1,000 silk strands of divine power. It feels like my believers only produce mithril. Back in his god's domain, Liu muttered to himself. He wasn't planning on having the Grey Dwarves make equipment. Not yet, anyway. He wouldn't move them until the mithril mine was tapped dry. After thinking for a bit, he looked at the Black Moon Elf Mother tree. It was an ancient tree, a lower god in its own right. Its branches made amazing staff material, especially for the dark system. The demigod staff makers could even craft semi-artifact level staves. Nah. A staff or 2 made from the trunk is fine. But if there are too many, even if it seems impossible, people will start thinking about the Black Moon Elf Mother tree. Liu shook his head. This was different from the Black Moon Elves. All kinds of weird races live on the immortal continent. Black Moon Elves have to be in larger numbers. A dozen or so of them popping up. Nobody would think about the ultra-rare tree. But the tree trunk appearing multiple times? People would definitely figure it out. Looks like I need to develop some kind of specialty product. He made a mental note. No rush for now. Only true gods can have shops in the city of gods. Anyway, he materialized 1,000 kilograms of light energy, and gently placed it next to the reincarnation pond. In an instant, it was like a shark smelling blood. The entire pond, the 2-winged angel statues on all 4 sides suddenly blazed with white light. A powerful suction force acted on the crystal. Suddenly, the light energy surged, the pure white light energy enveloped the entire pool. Even more light energy spread out, the plants on the mountain started to be purified, some plants adapted to the light energy and began to grow. A tall tree with white flowers caught Liu's eye. "This is a little light tree," that he said, surprised. Little light trees are level 4 light trees, they produce little light fruit, which is great for healing creatures of level 4 and below. Lucky that a little light tree popped up. Liu smiled. The little Guanming tree wasn't a big deal to him, but they could grow into great light trees, and even sacred light trees. Maybe I could turn the 6th level great light tree into a specialty. His eyes glinted. The reincarnation pool was perfect for growing them. Of course, it would take a lot of time, sacrifices. Time passed slowly. In the reincarnation pool, the light energy grew more intense. The angel statues were barely visible. Looking down from above, the entire mountain was covered in white light energy. White light plants sprouted everywhere, even strange light creatures appeared, mostly insects and rodents. Time passed. In the city of Grush, another year of sacrifices was underway. In the reincarnation pool, the light energy gradually faded. A 2-winged angel, white as jade, appeared. A female angel, curled up in a fetal position, her eyelashes fluttered, bright eyes opened, black hair cascaded down her back. In her left hand, she held a pure white staff. Light energy surged. She stood slowly, wearing a white robe. Facing the direction of the divine realm, she knelt respectfully, her red lips parted. "Great God, thank you for giving me life. Please give me a name. I will be loyal to you, believe in you, and become the sharpest sword in your hand." A strong connection of faith formed. A saint. Liu was surprised. This newly born angel was a saint. What was going on? The Black Moon elves born from the Black Moon elf mother tree were just fanatical believers. They didn't reach the level of saints. Could it be? Is it because they're angels? His heart skipped a beat. He thought of the legends. How many great high-ranking gods and supreme gods like to have angels as attendants? Maybe that was why. Angels were just inherently loyal. From the moment they were born, they were saints of the gods. Of course, he wouldn't know until the next angel was born. "I name you Julia." He spoke. His voice boomed in the angel's mind, full of majesty. "Julia, thank my lord for the name." Julia said respectfully. Liu's eyes flashed purple, the eye of insight opened. Chapter 82. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Name, Julia. Category, Angel. Level, 9th level demigod, Bronze demigod. Status, Adult. Career path, Capable angel. Talents, Lights chosen, Light enhancement, Light domain, Dark vision. Skills, Flame of light, Light from heaven, Divine blessing, Divine purification, Divine healing, Starlight. Strength, 9.1, Physique, 9.3, Agility, 9.5, Spirit, 9.8. Capable angel. So, a spellcaster in winged angel form. But these stats. Liu looked surprised. Julia's stats are insane. She's clearly a spellcaster, but her strength and physique have hit demigod level. Stats get harder to improve the higher the level. Each 0.1 increment gets exponentially harder, plus, each 0.1 increase has a bigger impact on power. A bronze demigod spellcaster with strength above 9. No wonder angels are legendary, they're known for their combat abilities. But how useful is it? A spellcaster is supposed to stay in the back. How's she gonna brawl? He muttered to himself, then he remembered the muscular priest hog. Okay, so maybe spellcasters don't always have to hide. She's the 7th saint. And my first demigod believer. He smiled. Demigod believers are usually reserved for gold demigods. Out of billions of demigods in the city of gods, probably less than 10,000 have them. The God-being tower rankings prove it. Of course, some gold demigods might not bother with the tower, or maybe their demigod believers don't have offensive abilities. Even facing a legendary black dragon takes forever. The immortal continent is full of creatures, all types exist, but there's no doubt that having a demigod believer puts you at the top of the demigod food chain. Too bad I have to wait 100 years for another angel. Liu shook his head. He looked at Julia kneeling before him. completely devoted, he sent the Judgment Priesthood down the Faith Channel and merged it with Julia. She's his first angel, she's gonna be a leader in his angel legion, he needs to power her up. And the Judgment Priesthood is perfect for angels, it's a light-based priesthood, plus, it leans towards spellcasting. Julia was still kneeling outside the reincarnation pool, lost in prayer. Suddenly, an immense power surged through her. She looked up, her long blue hair floated, her eyes blazed with pure white light. The white wings on her back unfolded, white light surged, forming massive wings, hundreds of feet across. She floated, an aura of immense power flowed from her, an aura of judgment. A pure white diamond-shaped gem appeared on her forehead, shining brightly. A simple crown of judgment emerged on her head, holding back her hair. The staff in her left hand transformed into a scepter. A scepter of terrible power. Julia thanks you, Lord, for your gift. After a long time, Julia opened her eyes, knelt, and bowed deeply. Her face was pure devotion, no other emotion at all. She lived for her God, she would dedicate her life to him. Excellent. Li Yu was pleased. Julia was still a bronze demigod, but a bronze demigod with a priesthood, was worlds apart from one without. The gods in the city of gods all have priesthoods, but not all demigods can get one. A priesthood is the foundation for becoming a god, it's essential for building a divine domain, but it's not required for becoming a demigod. You don't need it, you can become a demigod, but you can't build a divine domain, you can't ignite the divine fire. You'll be stuck as a demigod forever. Many demigods figure out their own priesthoods, but it takes forever, and you need insane talent. Julia, stay here by the reincarnation pool and guard it. Li Yu ordered. The reincarnation pool was too important, he needed someone watching it, he couldn't keep an eye on his entire radius. Normally, gods don't pay attention to creatures entering their range, unless they're super powerful or carry the aura of another god. If gods paid attention to every creature that entered, they wouldn't have time for anything else, so Julia would guard the pool. If word got out, true gods would come for it. Julia obeys, Lord. Julia replied. She grabbed a huge rock, hollowed it out, and decorated the outside. She created a simple stone house, next to the reincarnation pool. Great Lord, your light is brighter than the sun and moon, your glory is eternal. Great Lord. In Grush City, Priest Hog, a giant of a man, wore a tight black robe, clutching his staff. He knelt in fervent prayer, his voice like thunder. Behind him, the Thunder Legion, believers of all races, knelt, pious, respectful, and fanatical. The atmosphere got to them. The returning believers who'd been fighting were infected by the others. They became more religious. Casual believers became true believers became devout believers. Many of the original residents of Grunch City, transformed from devout to fanatical. Li Yu saw it clearly. Many faith channels were solidifying. He saw the interface, believer interface, Holy Spirit, 0, Saints, 7, fanatical believers, 535, devout believers, 5630, true believers, 8590, casual believers, 4489, total believers, 4299, orcs, plus 4380, humans, plus 1095, grey dwarves, plus 5534, rats, plus 849, silver centaurs, plus 2105, dragons, plus 989, goblins, equals 19251, shamans, hog, ret, Noel, Greer, divine skills, palm thunder, level 5, thunder vitality, level 5, bloodthirst. Level 5, thunder and lightning, level 5, thunder roar, level 5, group rage, level 5, hail spear, level 5, madness hail ice shield, level 5, hail shackles, level 5, hail giant, level 5, hail tornado, level 5, mass ice shield, level 5. 7 saints provide about 6,200 faith points per day. 535 fanatical believers provide about 6,400 faith points per day. The rest of the believers combine to provide about 6,500 faith points per day. Li Yu smiled. That's 19,100 faith points every day. Almost 7 million per year, unimaginable for someone who's only been here 8 years. As the sacrifice ceremony in Grush City ended, the offerings disappeared from the temple. Event, your followers held a pious sacrificial ceremony for you. Event, your believer sacrificed a 6th level, Flower of Darkness. Event, you gained 190,000 faith points. Talent, sacrifices are multiplied by 100. Talent, you obtained an 8th level, Dark Ancient Flower. Dark Ancient Flower. Perfect for Faloo to reach adulthood. An adult black dragon is legendary. A legendary black dragon with a strong priesthood. How strong will she be? Liu whispered. He looked at the dark ancient flower and flicked his fingers. The flower flew out of his divine realm, and into the mouth of the black dragon Faloo. Chapter 83. You are listening at Mtlnovel.audio. No matter if it's the black dragon Faloo, or a four-headed dragon, their sheer size meant they had to be suspended above Grumsh during the sacrificial ceremony. Of course, Faloo could turn human, but not the bone dragons. So, it was just easier to float them all. Plus, it really amplified the awe factor for the believers in Grumsh City. The deeper the awe, the more devout the faith. Just then, as the dark ancient flower went down Faloo's gullet, a terrifying burst of dark energy exploded. Rohar, Faloo roared with pure excitement, her body started to swell again, flesh and blood surged, dragon scales sprouted, and the 4 horns on her head grew thick and menacing. Her claws became thicker and sharper. A wave of terrifying power washed off her blood-red body. She went from a 100-meter wingspan to a staggering 180 meters. A single flap of her wings kicked up a gale. Her entire body blotted out the sky, casting a massive shadow. The soul fire in the eyes of Theodore and the other 3 legendary bone dragons flared wildly. She was too strong, her dragon power was off the charts. Even as legendary bone dragons, they felt a little overwhelmed. And compared to Faloo's massive frame, they suddenly seemed almost petite. Rohar, Faloo let out another earth-shattering roar. All over Grumsh City, the dragons, orcs, humans, and goblins brought there this year were terrified, overcome with fear. They frantically prayed to the great thunder god. In an instant, the faiths of all the races burned even brighter. Faloo thanks the Lord for this gift. High above, Faloo bowed her head towards the god realm, speaking with fervent respect. Her heart was bursting. She was an adult. She was an adult. Just a few years since her birth, and she'd already reached adulthood. Normally, it'd take a dragon at least 300 years to get here. Another legendary believer. In the divine domain, Liu smiled. For legendary bone dragons, the first black moon elf, Aluni, and now the black dragon Faloo, the 5th legendary believer. Legendary believers might not be as powerful as demigods, but even in the city of gods, most demigods didn't have followers this strong. Boom! Thunder cracked above Grumsh City, and the overwhelming power of the gods filled the air. Liu's majestic voice boomed. My followers. Many of you are deeply devout, and I am pleased. I, the god of thunder, grant you sustenance. Suddenly, a massive clump of golden, slightly blood-tinged, dragon blood-bred tree, came flying out, covering the entire city of Grumsh. Every believer looked up, jaws dropped, at the enormous shadows and countless towering trees laden with golden bread. Their hearts were filled with awe. The Lord's power is eternal, his glory undying. The believers bowed low, faces to the ground. This was a miracle. A miracle revealed by the great God himself. Boom! Tens of thousands of dragon blood-bred trees crashed down about half a kilometer west of Grumsh, into a large open area. The sight of the golden patch, stretching as far as the eye could see, filled everyone with the joy of the harvest. Time acceleration, Liu murmured to himself in the divine realm. He had 5,110 strands of divine power now. With a thought, 5,000 strands of divine power transformed into a torrent of purple light, rushing out of the divine realm, centered on Grumsh. It blanketed the territory within a 42-kilometer radius. The hazy purple light flickered, and within that area, time sped up dramatically. 1 second became 1 day. The divine power simulated a false sun and moon, rising in the east and setting in the west. Liu remained calm, watching quietly from the divine realm. Every minute, he felt the channels of faith growing stronger and new channels opening as new life sprouted and, guided by their parents, began to believe in him. In the blink of an eye, 8 years had passed. Of course, for Liu, it was only about 50 minutes. Grumsh City, the entire city had become incredibly prosperous. Orcs, humans, grey dwarves, rat men, dragons, silver centaurs, goblins, creatures from 7 different races were everywhere. Except for orcs and humans, the other 5 tribes mostly kept to their own. Most of their people didn't live in Grumsh City, though there were still a fair number who did. God's power is starting to fade. In the main hall of the Thunder Order, Priest Hog slowly opened his eyes. His hulking form radiated immense power, his skin was green and rough, his muscles bulging. Aside from clan leader Yaimen, no orc was stronger than him. 8 years had taken him from 5th level to extraordinary, and then to 7th level epic. His boost in speed was significant, partly, of course, because he was a shaman of the gods, but mostly because he had integrated the priesthood into his body. Controlling a priesthood naturally resulted in a rapid increase in strength. The power of God is great and endless. Beside him, Deputy Priest Rhett opened his eyes. He looked ancient, but also possessed terrifying power. He had been promoted to the 6th level of Fatian, but compared to Hog, he was much smaller, barely reaching Hog's waist. The two walked out of the hall and went to a huge military camp nearby. Hoo-hoo-ho! Roars echoed throughout the camp. 1,000 violent knights were charging, kicking up dust. Each knight was like a small mountain, and their charge was violent and awe-inspiring. The ground trembled, even the nearby boulders shook slightly. Every violent knight was a 6th order flying level. Thousands of 6th level knights charging together. The raw power was horrifying. Even an epic level opponent would be torn apart. Even legendary figures would take pause. This was the army. Extraordinary power, almost indestructible. On the other side, 1,000 silver centaurs were transformed into streaks of silver lightning, running wildly and firing silver arrows. Half a kilometer away, 1,000 fist-sized rocks that the epic Kingsley had raised were shattered. Not a single stone was spared. 8 years, for both the Believers and the Thunder Legion, it was a long time. During that time, thanks to the Raptors' rapid breeding, the number of violent knights had increased dramatically. The same was true for the Silver Centaur clan. Their numbers had swelled, and more people joined the Thunder Legion. Lord Priest Iman, towering over 7 meters, hopped off his transformed black scale dragon and grinned, revealing his ferocity. His cultivation level matched Hog's. Both had reached the 7th level of epic. Even the black scale dragon beneath him had become epic level. It might not be as large as the epic black dragon, but its ferocious aura was just as intense. Lord Priest Kingsley and Pope approached and bowed. They remained 7th level epics, but were much stronger than they had been 8 years before. The power of the great god is fading. Lead the Thunder Legion and patrol the borders. Hog commanded. For the 6th level violent knights and silver centaurs, traveling 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers a day was no problem. Grumsh City spanned 3,000 kilometers in radius. Having the knights and centaurs patrol was simple. Yes. Iman, Kingsley, and Pope acknowledged the order. Then, 1,000 violent knights and 1,000 silver centaurs thundered out of the military camp and left the city. Let's go see those kids, Hog said calmly. Soon, he and Deputy Red arrived at a large courtyard. Inside were young orcs, humans, grey dwarves, rat men, dragons, and goblins. They all sat quietly on the ground, eyes closed in meditation. Seeing Hog and Red's arrival, Priest Noel and Priest Greer, who had been watching over the children, quickly came forward and saluted. Priest. How's it going? Hog asked. Chapter 84. You are listening at novelfull.audio. While they all showed potential in spellcasting, most of them, except for 3, weren't that great. Noel, a half-orc, looked helpless. There were over 30 people in the courtyard, but most would peak at 3rd-level spellcasters, unable to reach 4th level. Their talent just wasn't there, unless the big guy upstairs could grant a professional boost for spellcasters. Hog considered this for a moment. Then, he slowly commanded, "Take them to Dark Canyon with me." Dark Canyon. Noel and Greer were both surprised. They knew exactly where Dark Canyon was. It was home to a group of scary Black Moon elves. Even though they all worshipped the great gods, they were wary of the Black Moon Elves, keeping their distance. According to legend, Black Moon Elves were cold-blooded, high-level creatures. However, they also knew that Priest Hogg had a good relationship with the Black Moon Elf leader, Eluni. Yes. The two nodded. Soon, the group left Govish City, heading towards Dark Canyon. Reached the limit. With my 5th level power, I can only speed up the radiation range by 10 years, tops. Otherwise, the Divine Realm will be affected. In the Divine Realm, Liu said softly. He was calm, simply watching the Thunder Legion leave Grunch City. He watched as Chief Priest Hogg led the small group to Dark Canyon. 8 years, the number of believers across the 7 tribes had exploded. From nearly 20,000, it had skyrocketed to around 50,000, whether they were half-orcs, humans, grey dwarves, or goblins, they were all fertile. Not to mention the rat men, who were breeding like crazy. Even the Silver Centaur population had doubled. Plus, every member of the Thunder Legion had reached 6th level. This allowed him to rake in faith points every day. It was through the roof. Straight up to over 55,000, that's 20 million faith points a year. After all, believers start providing points at the 5th level. With each level gained, the faith points provided double, and there were also a bunch of believers leveling up their faith. Each time they leveled up, the faith points they provided increased tenfold. 5,000 threads of magical power is a lot. But it turned out to be a steal. Liu smiled. Just the Thunder Legion reaching the 6th level was worth it. Buying all the treasures needed for the upgrade would require 2,000 7th level epic promotion items. That's over 40,000 threads of divine power. And there's one more legend and 2 epic believers. He glanced outside Grunch City. The ancient dark tree column was getting bigger and bigger. It had broken through to epic and become a legend in the 7th year. Liu's gaze landed on Dark Canyon. God is great. Time can be sped up. In Dark Canyon, Eluni stood on the edge of the Lake of Tranquility, looking towards Grunch City. She wore a black robe and held a staff. Her black hair hung down to her waist, and her perfect face was filled with piety. Of course, she wasn't worshipping Grunch City, she worshipped the great god in the Divine Realm. As the great god saint, she could still feel the difference in time. Chieftain, Priest Hogg is here. A black figure flashed from a distance, moving nearly 100 meters with each flash. Finally, it stopped a meter from Eluni and saluted. Bibina, escort them into the quiet village. Eluni ordered. The quiet village, built as more Black Moon Elves were born, was on the other side of the Lake of Tranquility. A faint black mist constantly covered the lake, completely blocking the view. You couldn't see the Black Moon Elf mother tree from the quiet village. Yes. Bibina bowed, wearing exquisite black leather armor with 2 daggers on her waist. She turned and left, activating her blinking skills. She flashed and disappeared. As an Overwatch, Bibina was a top-tier assassin. Whoosh, a faint black mist rose from Eluni's feet. She was enveloped. When the mist dissipated, she was gone. In the quiet village, each Black Moon Elf practiced alone. 8 Black Moon Elves had been born over the years. Together with Bibina and another magister named Stuart, there were 11 Black Moon Elves. Eluni was a legendary spellcaster. The other 10 were all epic level. 3 were assassin-type Overwatches, 4 were caster-type Black Moon Magisters. And 3 were archer-type Black Moon Priestesses. The Black Moon Priestesses were the most unique. Unlike the Silver Centaurs, they didn't use normal bows and arrows, but magical ones. They normally didn't carry bows and arrows, but in battle, they could directly condense magical power into magic longbows. Extremely powerful. Kingsley and Pope, 2 veterans who had been at the epic level for years, were both weaker than the Black Moon Priestesses. Dear Chieftain Eluni. Priest Hogg looked at Eluni, standing quietly before him, and smiled, offering a respectful greeting. Hello, Chieftain Eluni. Deputy Red, Kingsley, and Pope quickly followed suit. A legendary powerhouse deserved respect. Lord Priest. Eluni returned the greeting, smiling and nodding to Rhett, Kingsley, and Pope. Then, she glanced at the group following Hogg, looking around curiously. A hint of doubt crossed her face. Lord Priest, these are promising spellcasters from various tribes, as per our Lord's instructions. But Priest Hog shook his head with a wry smile. They aren't very talented. I see. Eluni nodded slightly. Since it's our Lord's will, the Black Moon Elves will help in any way we can. 3 months here should improve their spellcasting talent a lot. Hog smiled and bowed. Thank you, Chieftain Eluni. He was relieved. Even though he was the chief priest of the Thunder Order, the Black Moon Elves were too powerful and talented. Besides, the great gods had never said that the Black Moon Elves had to obey the Thunder Order. So he could only discuss things here in the quiet village. If they disagreed, he was out of luck. He couldn't very well report this minor issue to the great god of thunder, could he? We are both saints of our Lord, no need for such formalities. Elun shook her head. The 32 spellcaster hopefuls from various races built a few houses and settled in the quiet village, about a kilometer away. The quiet village was only for female elves, and it wasn't appropriate for these young people of all races to live there. In the Black Moon Elves' hearts, their bodies and souls belonged to the great god. Hurry up. Everyone, move. You miserable orcs, faster. A huge army marched across the wilderness, 4 legendary bone dragons roared in the sky, casting large shadows. Their white bones struck fear into everyone's hearts. Next to them, 3 soul-snatching death scythes rode nightmare beasts burning with hellfire, wielding huge scythes. They wore wide black robes, obscuring their heads and faces. Only 2 ghostly flames floated in the robes. On the ground, a small group of dread knights rode smaller nightmare beasts. Through the jungle, each dread knight radiated a terrifying undead aura, comparable to an epic level. The cruel and violent dark elves kept their distance, not to mention the large number of orcs they drove forward. Everyone looked terrified, not only of the dark elves, but also of the terrifying bone dragons and soul-snatching death scythes above. Undead creatures have always been synonymous with terror. Wherever they went, life died. No living creature wanted to stay near the undead. On the other side of the dark elves and half-orcs, a large number of snake men were gathered. Even as they marched, the snake men constantly intertwined and engaged in reproductive activities. Chapter 85. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At the front stood the snake man leader, wearing a vibrant robe and holding a staff. The snake priestess had a solemn air. Her striking black hair framed a face of pure charm, the kind that could easily lead one to believe she was destined to be a priestess of the fertility god. Beyond faith, it undoubtedly had something to do with her stunning beauty. So, there really are followers of the spider goddess here, like bone dragons, soul-snatching death scythes, and shock knights. That she looked up at the terrifying undead creatures, a wave of unease washing over her. They were too powerful. Compared to them, her snake men clan was practically nothing. Far away in his god's domain, the reproduction god's face was equally shocked. A 4-headed dragon. 3 soul-snatching death scythes. 9 shock knights. How could Bausi, the spider goddess, become this strong? Just a year ago, he muttered in disbelief. She only had a single legendary bone dragon. What happened? That within their 9 shrines, Bausi, with her legendary bone dragon, had always been the strongest, but this was a whole new level of power. With this kind of strength, she could break into the top 10,000 in the God-being tower. Maybe even the top 5,000. He looked uncertain, recalling the rumors he'd heard, that the spider goddess had met a true undead god. Now, it seemed that rumor was true. Are the true gods of the undead that generous and terrifying? Just handing out legendary followers like candy, that he still found it hard to believe. From what he knew, even for a true god, legendary followers were incredibly valuable. What kind of true god would just give away 7 legendary followers at once? Unless, the undead true god had fallen for the spider goddess, Bausi. But how could a mere demigod possibly charm a true god of the undead? It was simply impossible. But with this kind of strength, he said, reassessing, she'll crush those followers of the thunder god. His face calmed. The stronger the spider goddess became, the better it would be for him. The 9 shrines weren't just some casual alliance, they were bound by oaths sworn in the city of gods. Being a 4th-level demigod, she can give me a lot of divine power. A hint of excitement flickered in his eyes as he pulled his saint closer, ready to continue his reproduction plans. Too bad the lack of nightmare beasts makes breeding demon hunters impossible, he sighed. According to legend, he said, that class is the bane of demons. Meanwhile, in his own divine domain, Liu gazed at the Black Moon Elf Mother Tree, a trace of regret on his face. Black Moon priestesses, Black Moon mages, overwatchers, demon hunters. Of them all, the demon hunter was arguably the most terrifying, the natural enemy of demons. Their skills were bizarre and unparalleled, feared by creatures of all levels. If only I knew where to find a nightmare beast, he mused. Those hellish magical beasts from the world of the dead are just too rare. He shook his head, dismissing the idea. Some things couldn't be rushed, it had to happen step by step, or, more accurately, it depended on luck. Maybe one day, a nightmare beast would just show up. The thought struck him. He was going to the city of gods. The city of gods seemed to exist outside of time itself. Age left no mark on its streets. Gods walked among mortals, indistinguishable from ordinary people. Shops lined the streets, each exuding a different aura, some gloomy, some sharp, some filled with vitality, others solid as mountains. Demigods with unique auras sat on the ground, running street stalls. No one shouted. The gods simply waited for a deity. Setting up a street stall wasn't shameful, but it asterisk. Would asterisk be embarrassing to act like a mortal, hawking goods and harassing customers? The entire trading market was surprisingly quiet. After navigating 325 lanes, Liu finally arrived at a villa. This is it. He glanced at the house number next to the villa and murmured to himself. He tapped lightly, and a bell hanging by the door shook subtly. Strangely, no sound came out. Liu didn't rush, he waited patiently. After a moment, the villa door opened. An elderly god, dressed strangely in black robes, studied Liu. God of Thunder. That's me, Liu confirmed, nodding. Come in, the old god said, a flicker of a smile on his face. He turned and led the way inside. The villa door closed automatically. The villa was eccentric. Tables, chairs, and benches had sprouted arms and legs. Looking around curiously, the yard was filled with plants, fruits, vegetables, all of them oddly shaped and often sporting limbs of their own. I've lived here alone for a long time, the old god said without looking back. These little guys keep me company. Interesting, Liu replied, smiling. His expression didn't change. The god ahead was known as the Trickster God, a member of the Hunting God organization, but according to Temple, the god of mist, this Trickster God had lost his immortal continent followers. He'd only survived by turning his god's domain, his ancestral temple, into an ordinary stone. Even so, he couldn't risk showing his face on the immortal continent again. His god's domain was now completely surrounded by his enemies. Discovery meant certain death, so he was stuck in the city of gods. Of course, this wasn't his true body remained in his god's domain. The realization left Liu amazed and cautious. Among the thousands of gods, who knew what kind of bizarre powers his enemies might possess? Soon, the two arrived at a room with a round table. 5 gods sat silently around it. As Liu entered, their eyes snapped to him, each emitting a powerful and undisguised aura. They were terrifying. Every single one as strong as Maggie, the 8th-turn demigod he'd encountered outside the God-being tower. 2 of them had auras like the endless sea, 9th-turn demigods, at the pinnacle of the demigod realm. Just as I thought, all fallen demigods. Liu's face remained neutral. Even facing their combined power, he showed no sign of concern. Even though he was only a 5th-turn demigod, his strength surpassed that of an 8th-turn demigod. He was only half a step behind a 9th-turn demigod. If his believers won, he was confident he could defeat a 9th-turn demigod. With such confidence, there was nothing to fear. God of Thunder, Maggie tells us it's unbelievable you haven't been a demigod for less than a century, the first god on the left said slowly, a majestic figure in a dark gold robe and crown. He was one of the 2 9th-turn demigods. Just lucky, Liu replied, smiling. Seeing that the other 4 demigods had no intention of speaking, he decided not to waste time. He held out his hand. A thin wisp of priesthood floated in the center of his palm. Its appearance immediately captured the attention of all 5 dark gods. They stared with longing. As for the Trickster God, he disappeared as soon as he brought Liu into the room. It's the Avatar priesthood, the first god on the right said in a low voice. His pupils were like split blood rubies, radiating a terrible bloody aura. God of Thunder, what do you want for it? Another demigod asked, the only goddess present. Divine power. I only want divine power, Liu stated calmly. He wasn't comfortable trading the priesthood outside. Too afraid of being targeted by a true god, but with the Hunting the True God organization, there wasn't much risk. He recalled Temple, the god of mist's words. The Hunting the True God organization had traded priesthoods many times. After all, a successful hunt always yielded priesthoods. Most chose to trade them. A priesthood that didn't suit one's own abilities wasn't much use, and giving it to believers. Unlikely. No demigod would be that generous. There had never been any issues with the organization's trades, so trading the priesthood here was safe and private. 2 drops of divine power, the blood god offered. 10,000 strands of divine power equaled 1 drop. Liu's face remained calm, but he was shocked, as expected of a 9th turn demigod. 2 drops of divine power right off the bat. He'd been an 8th turn demigod for years. Even with the mithril mine, he hadn't been able to accumulate 2 drops of divine power. Even for some of the newer true gods, a few drops of divine power was not a small amount. Chapter 86. You are listening at Mtlnovel.audio. But it's more than just a couple of drops of divine power. This is what's left behind after a true god dies, right? But how easy is it to kill a true god? 3 drops of divine power, the shadow god rasped. This was an 8th level demigod. At the demigod stage, each refinement of the divine body and soul consumes 5 times the divine power of the last. Moving from the 4th to the 5th rank takes 625 strands of divine power, advancing from the 7th to the 8th. Nearly 80,000. Almost 8 drops of divine power. A demigod promoted to the 8th rank is never hurting for resources. They're all hustling to build up enough divine power for their 9th rotation. Their net worth is insane. Same goes for the 9th rotation demigod. Lighting the divine fire requires at least 200 drops of divine power. 5 drops of divine power, the first 9-turn demigod said slowly. He was the god of the dark web. 7 drops of divine power, the god of desire, the only woman, purred, licking her lips. The other 2 8th-level demigods exchanged wry looks. 7 drops exceeded their budget. Even wanting another priesthood, they had to bow out. 10 drops of divine power, the blood god grinned, exposing bloody, grooved fangs. Vampire clan. Liu noted to himself, vampires were lower-level creatures, but they were divine, like the silver centaurs, the best of the best. Adults possessed 3rd-level strength, a powerful race. And extremely hierarchical. 12 drops of divine power, the goddess of desire countered. Edai, you're loaded. Why aren't you rank 8 yet? The god of the dark web said, narrowing his eyes. Not enough control of the priesthood. The goddess of desire's eyes flickered. Maybe you could help me practice. She covered her mouth, giggling sweetly, her revealing clothes offering a potent temptation. A mortal would probably swoon from just one look. Heh. The god of the dark web chuckled. 15 drops of divine power. Practice with the goddess of desire. No way. He'd heard the stories of demigods who ended up drained, bone dry, on her bed. Terrifying. 20 drops of divine power. The blood god stated firmly, that's my limit. If you can top that, I'm out. He glared at the god of the dark web and the goddess of desire. Can't do it, the goddess of desire said, getting up and leaving. Yours, the god of the dark web shrugged. A priesthood was worth way more than 20 drops of divine power, but this was a back-alley black market. The price couldn't compare to the outside world, and the shadow priesthood wasn't even that valuable. He wouldn't pay more than 20 drops. 20 drops meant 200,000 strands of divine power. Even as a 9-turn demigod with over 2 million followers, he only harvested around 100 strands a year. 200,000 strands meant over 2,000 years of saving. Too rich for his blood. No more bids. The shadow priesthood goes to you, Liu said to the blood god, but inside, he wasn't so calm. 20 drops of divine power. He'd have to accumulate that himself, would he ever? But now, a priesthood was easily within his reach. Just sell it to pay for the mithril mine he valued. Even fully mined, it'd probably be worth around 20 drops. Soon, they closed the deal. Happy trading. The blood god grinned, ecstatic. another priesthood would make him stronger, maybe he could even preliminarily fuse the shadow priesthood with his vampire priesthood, that would boost his chances of becoming a true god. Full fusion was out of the question. Could a demigod even fuse two priesthoods into a dual priesthood? Even his highly integrated vampire priesthood couldn't fully merge with the shadow priesthood, only a true god could pull that off. Leaving the villa, Liu carried 20 drops of divine power. The transaction had used faith power, which he transformed into his own divine power. He didn't plan on trading with the demigod anyway. He made his way to the dragon-type item store he'd been to twice. He spent a drop of divine power to buy 100 Velociraptor Reproduction God cards. Reproduction God cards maxed out at level 3, there were no level 4 cards, 4th level creatures were mid-range, with functions too complex for the Reproduction God cards. Reproduction and cultivation spells to perfectly refine. Could the Supreme God create a 4th level Reproduction God card? Liu didn't know, he'd never seen one for sale in the City of Gods. 100 Velociraptor Reproduction God cards means 10,000 Velociraptors. That's going to boost the orc numbers too. Liu thought, spending another drop of divine power on 100 3rd-level Orc Reproduction God cards. Orc Reproduction God cards ranged from 1st to 3rd level, and the 3rd-level version required at least 20 3rd-level orcs in your follower base to extract efficient particles, genes. In Liu's opinion, he wanted to learn from each other's strengths, offset weaknesses, and condense perfect genes for large-scale breeding. Too bad silver centaurs are divine creatures. Like median creatures, there's no reproduction god card for them. He regretted, no need for reproduction god cards with his other believer races. Too expensive. The Furious Knight was a 6th-level profession, worth the cost, but using a reproduction god card on other believer races? Wasteful. Back in his domain, Liu stood, seeing its monotony, a small plot of land, maybe half a kilometer, one palace, that was it. Many gods cared little for material possessions, different priesthoods, personalities, and views. Naturally, Liu didn't dwell on it. First, cultivate 10,000 raptors and 10,000 orcs. Then, improve my own cultivation. He murmured, 3rd-level orcs could find suitable raptors now. Unlike the 2nd-level orcs, it wouldn't be a 1 in 3 success rate for changing professions. He waved his hand, the 200 divine reproduction cards lined up in front of him activated. A surge of green divine light, like the vast sea, burst from the divine realm, filling Grush. Particles were extracted from every 3rd-order half-orc and raptor. The endless life vibrated and condensed outside Grush, turning into an aggregation of 20,000 lives. Chief Priest Hogg, who had just returned, was elated and quickly bowed devoutly towards the divine realm. Great Lord, your glory lasts forever, your power is mighty, you are omnipotent. All across Grush, believers stopped what they were doing. The 7 tribes quickly knelt, looking at the miracle in shock. They prayed devoutly to the great God. Outside the city, 20,000 life aggregates slowly changed, embryo, larvae, growth. Roar. 10,000 raptors roared, looking awestruck towards God's realm, prostrating on the ground. Their lives came from the great God in God's realm. The Creator. Thank you to the great gods for giving us life. Another 10,000 hideous orcs also knelt, excited and pious. Tall, with bulging green muscles and rough skin, the 15-year-old orcs looked as strong as fully grown adults. Hogg, Thunder Legion expansion. 10,000 violent knights and 2,000 silver centaurs. Liu's voice boomed in Hogg's ears, then he turned his attention back to himself. 3125 strands of divine power vibrated within him. He began his promotion to 6th-turn demigod. Thunder surged, covering the entire divine domain, forming a terrifying sea of lightning. Chapter 87. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yaimen, perched atop the tallest mountain on his massive black scale dragon, was a sight to behold. Even seated, his combined height with the dragon stretched 15 meters above the peak. He was a veritable giant. His eyes, cold and edged with bloodlust, focused on the distance. He gripped a huge, blood-soaked battle axe, the crimson liquid swirling around him like a macabre halo. Suddenly, his eyes widened, a jolt of bloody energy flashing through them. He saw them, tiny black dots slowly materializing on the horizon. Though incredibly far off, his epic-level strength, rivaling that of a legend, allowed him to identify them instantly, for massive bone dragons. No smaller than the ones in Grumsh City. For legendary bone dragons, that he licked his lips, bloodlust burning in his eyes, his rough, green skin bulged with muscles that resembled boulders. Roar, that the black scale dragon beneath him growled low in its throat, it stared at the sky, the sight of the legendary bone dragons unsettling it. However, the powerful master on its back instilled courage, pushing aside the unease and replacing it with a surge of ferocity. Yaimen's first instinct was to rush into battle, eager to test his strength against the 4 legendary bone dragons. Then he saw them. Alongside the bone dragons rode 3 soul-stealing death knights atop nightmare beasts. This gave him pause. 7 legends. An impossible fight. Despite his confidence, he wasn't arrogant enough to take on those odds. 7 legends, and likely an army on the ground. They're coming for Grumsh City. Fall back, gather our forces, and then crush them all. Yaimen murmured. He suppressed his murderous aura and turned the black scale dragon around. Soon, 1,000 fury knights and 1,000 silver lancers scattered on patrol, kicking up dust as they raced back towards Grumsh City. At the same time, Yaimen prayed to the great Lord of Thunder. My lord, 4 legendary bone dragons and 3 legendary soul-snatching death knights have been spotted on the border. Ground troops unknown. In the realm of the gods, Liu slowly opened his eyes. Thunder still crackled around him. Within his divine body, thunderous power refined his blood, bones, and skin. 4 legendary bone dragons and 3 legendary soul-snatching death knights. 1,000,000 miles away, a demigod of that caliber. He frowned. With that kind of power, they could easily clear the 3rd floor of the God-being tower and rank in the top 10,000. But 1,000,000 miles of wilderness was a newcomer's territory, nowhere near that many powerful demigods. Most would be gold level. And nobody should be over 100 years old. Could this be the work of the true god of the undead? Are you really that desperate for the treasure? He relaxed his brow, his eyes calm. So what if it was the true god of the undead? As long as they didn't know the coordinates of his divine domain, they couldn't directly interfere. They were limited to sending legendary undead creatures, and legendary undead creatures. Those 3 soul-snatching death knights couldn't have arrived at a better time. They'll provide me with 3 nightmare beasts. A faint smile touched his lips. Nightmare beasts plus Black Moon Elf Mother Trees. Black Moon Elves could unlock the Demon Hunter class template. He hadn't encountered any demons yet, but it was only a matter of time. They came in all shapes and sizes. This battle. I'll send the Thunder Legion, the 4-headed skeleton dragon and the Black Moon Elf clan. As long as the Black Moon Elves didn't move in groups of 50, 60, or 100, no one would suspect the existence of a Black Moon Elf mother tree. It was far too precious and unbelievable. The next moment, thunder surged above Grumsh City. Divine power crackled. An army of false god worshippers is approaching Grumsh City. My followers. It is time to prove your bravery. By the thunder order, let the divine war begin. Silence fell over Grumsh City. Then, bloodshot eyes flared in every believer's face. Their breathing quickened. They shouted with feverish enthusiasm. God war. God war. Eternal glory to our Lord. God war. In their tranquil village, Eluni received the oracle, a spark of battle lust igniting in her eyes. Had the time finally come for the Black Moon Elf clan to fight for the great god? Bibina. Gather the clansmen and head to Grumsh City. My lord has decreed that the divine war has begun. She ordered. A figure darted nearby, a black blur that momentarily stopped as a figure materialized, clad in leather armor, with a dagger whistling through the air. It was Bibina. Excitement shone in her eyes. Yes, crushing those weaklings 8 years ago had been pointless, but this time, the great god was calling them all to war. The enemy must be worthy opponents. Whoosh, she flashed and vanished. Time to gather the others. Soon, a magic circle sealed off the village. Even the Black Moon Elf mother tree was shrouded within the barrier. Without epic strength, it was impossible to break through or even glimpse inside. Among the Black Moon Elf clan, Eluni and the other 4 Black Moon Magisters. were well versed in magic circles. This was unique to their clan, the inheritance of the Black Moon Mage. Roar, on Black Dragon Mountain, Faloo opened her eyes, a thrill coursing through her as she soared into the sky. Commander of the Thunder Legion's vanguard, she was second in command only to Yaimen, who was always leading the Fury Knights. She understood the power of the priesthood by sleeping on Black Dragon Mountain. A personal oracle from the great god meant she would absolutely answer the call. Not far from Black Dragon Mountain, a mountain radiated with lifeless energy. The mountain was bare, lifeless, pale stones scattered across its surface, and nestled among the stones were 4 bone dragon nests. At this moment, Gra, that the 4 legendary bone dragons roared and charged into the sky. Their pale, iron-hard bones reflected a terrifying, cold light. Soul fire blazed in their eyes. They glanced at the departing black dragon Faloo, led by the bone dragon Theodore. The 4-headed bone dragon set course for Grunch City. In the divine domain, Liu paused in his 6th level training and glanced towards the mithril mine, a hint of surprise on his face. He had received a large infusion of divine power after selling a priesthood, but still treasured the mithril mine. Priesthoods could only be sold once. And even within the Hunting True God organization, one was the limit. The risks of selling a second were not worth it. The mine, guarded by Andra, patriarch of the Silver Centaur clan, remained his primary source of income. And Andra, the epic-level fusion of the Archer priesthood, had finally reached legend. So 4 of the 8 saints are now legends. Liu smiled. The half-orc chief Yaimen and head priest Hog remained at the epic level. Deputy priest Wright lacked a fusion priesthood. At the 6th level Fatian level, Faloo, the ancient dark tree Kareem, and the Black Moon Elf clan leader Eluni had risen to legend. The 2-winged angel Julia was a demigod, and now, there was another legendary saint. Adding in the 4 legendary bone dragons, 10 epic-level Black Moon Elves, 2 epic-level Silver Centaurs, that was 1 demigod, 8 legends, and 14 epics. Yaimen and Hog could suppress ordinary legends at the epic level. Such strength. Clearing the 4th floor of the God-Being Tower should be easy. And the 5th floor should be doable too. Liu's smile widened. He had slain 5 legendary red dragons on the 4th floor of the God Tower. A bronze demigod fell on the 5th floor. Once he cleared it, that he would leap onto the God-Being Tower rankings, within the top 155. Chapter 88. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The City of Gods held billions of demigods, to be among the top 155. That's insane. Even if this power comes from his believers, he's still at the absolute top of the demigod heap. Phew. Liu slowly closed his eyes. He kept refining his divine body, pushing for that 6th transformation. Once he hits the 6th rank of demigod, with the terrifying power of the dual priesthood he controls, basically, as long as his believers don't fall, he's confident he can take down a 9-turn demigod. And if his believers do win, he could crush a 9-turn demigod without breaking a sweat. That kind of strength, among demigods, he'd be unstoppable. Grush City up ahead, right? In the Dark Elf army, a stunningly beautiful Dark Elf priest spoke softly. Dressed in black robes, she gripped an ornate staff. Her body radiated raw magical power. A powerhouse, 6 years in, Fatian level. Yes, Lord Priest. Behind her marched a squad of hundreds of elite Dark Elves. Dark skin, handsome features, radiating a cold intensity. Each carried a dagger at their waist, a broadsword in hand, and a war bow slung across their back. Every single one of them exuded a 5th level aura, hundreds of 5th level badasses. This was the Goddess Guard, forged by the Spider Goddess, draining her divine power. Each one costing over 100 divine power threads. My Lady's Oracle, raze this city to the ground. No survivors. Wipe out every last believer in these false gods. Understood. The priestess's voice was like ice. Understood. The Goddess Guard captain licked her lips, a hint of bloodlust twisting her features. Killing, it was the Dark Elves' favorite pastime, and killing pleased their goddess. The more they killed, the bigger the rewards they'd reap. She earned her place as captain by being the deadliest, most brutal killer of them all. The army of 4,000 Dark Elves and 3,000 Snake Men. Plus 5,000 orcs driving in front, 12,000 strong in total. A massive horde, spreading across the land, a sea of heads as far as the eye could see. Roar! Suddenly, a earth-shattering dragon roar ripped through the air. In the distance, the white clouds churned, billowing and shifting, some patches turned inky black, as if stained, the black clouds hung low, oppressive and heavy, other white clouds faded, pale as a corpse, two contrasting colors battled in the sky, layer upon layer, like towering mountains. Boom! The black clouds exploded, a colossal figure, wings spanning over 600 feet, burst through, its black scales glinted, reflecting the sun like polished metal, four horns pierced the sky, the dragon's head, seen from afar, radiated pure, savage power. Just a single glance, the dark elf priestess felt her heart clench, her face paling. Roar! The black dragon roared, its draconic might washing over everything. Above the dark elf army, the soul fires in the four-headed bone dragon's eyes flared, they sensed a threat, they felt the terrible danger emanating from the extraordinary black dragon. They tensed, poised to strike, eyes locked on the fast-approaching black dragon. Roar! Suddenly, from the pale clouds, four bone dragons shot out as well, each one radiated an aura of death, soul fires blazed in their sockets, a chilling wind swept out, scattering the white clouds. One legendary black dragon and four legendary bone dragons, on the ground, the dark elf priest's pupils shrank. Didn't the great god say that this false god only had one legendary bone dragon, an epic black dragon, and a few epic level units? Why are there suddenly four? Four legendary bone dragons. And the epic black dragon is legendary now too. Asterisk boom, boom. Asterisk at that moment, the ground began to tremble. In the distance, a terrifying cavalry force appeared, clad in brutal armor, wielding massive axes. Bushes and boulders shattered before them. A faint bloody mist swirled around them, shrouding the cavalry. They looked like terrifying knights risen from the underworld. The sky was thick with dust. A monstrous force swept across the land, leaving every dark elf, orc, and snake man trembling with fear. Even from a distance, their violent aura was terrifying. That power. And especially the violent knights. Each one riding a black-scaled dragon, towering over 30 feet tall. And their leader Yaimen, a little giant, horrifying. Asterisk boom. Asterisk the ground shook harder and harder. Defense. The dark elf priest shouted, her voice cracking. She couldn't worry about the black dragon and the bone dragons in the sky. Those were for her own bone dragon and soul-snatching death scythes to handle. But the enemies on the ground, only she and the Fright Knights could deal with them. Thinking of the Fright Knights, she immediately looked. Suddenly she found that, these 9 Fright Knights did not hesitate at all. They rushed directly towards the large number of terrifying cavalry charging from a distance. She was a little dazed. Are there any brain problems with these shock knights? Don't they know how to act in unison? But she can't care about that much at this time. She can only do her best to urge the tribesmen to form a military formation. Then, pray that the great gods can bless them. Let them block the enemy. At the same time, keep an eye on the front. Looking forward to the 9 epic shock knights. They can severely damage the enemy cavalry. Damn it. They said there was only one legendary bone dragon. They said there were only a few hundred elite cavalry. In the dark elf city, in the divine domain, the spider goddess, bows, shot to her feet, a look of shock and fury on her face. The discrepancy was huge. One legendary bone dragon had turned into 4, plus a legendary black dragon. A few hundred elite cavalry had become thousands of 6th-tier units. No. Her eyes widened, through the eyes of a soul-snatching death scythe, she saw them behind the violent knights, silver. 6th level. 6th level silver centaurs, every single one of them. She gasped, her face turned ashen, 1,000 6th level cavalry, 1,000 6th level archers. How much divine power did it take to build that? She did a quick calculation in her head and felt faint, over 200,000 divine power threads. Luckily, I have 7 legendaries on my side. She relaxed slightly. That extra legendary, that's a major advantage. As for the believers down below, death happens, as long as the gods win, it'll all be worth it. I wonder what treasure the god of thunder's hiding. It must be something special to get a true god of the undead involved. She licked her lips. She had met the true god of the undead, Jeramaka, in the city of gods a long time ago, and they quickly became lovers. Thanks to that relationship, Jeramaka gave her a legendary bone dragon. With that, she united 8 demigods, forming the 9 shrines. Over the years, they had crushed many gods and reaped the rewards, and with the occasional gifts from Jeramaka, she grew stronger and stronger. But a year ago, Jeremiah asked her to deal with a demigod called the God of Thunder. She had been secretly searching for him for half a year, but she couldn't find him. Then, the God of Bones arrived, and gave her the information. For this, Jeremiah had given her 3 skull dragons, 3 soul-snatching death scythes, and 9 fright knights. God of Thunder, your head's worth a lot. The spider goddess stared at the battlefield. Honestly, she was intrigued by that treasure, but she knew, the true god of the undead was not to be trifled with. If she dared to steal that treasure, she wouldn't live long. But, he promised her, if she got that treasure, she would get a lot of divine power. In the realm of the gods, Liu still had his eyes closed. Thunder surged around his body, but his gaze stretched over 1,800 miles, to the border, to the coming war. What luck! I didn't expect there would be shock knights. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Then he sent an oracle. Let Yaimen kill the shock knight, but keep the nightmare beast. With Yaimen's ability to kill ordinary legendaries, dealing with 9 epics should be easy. Roar! The black dragon Faluli's roar shook the sky. A terrifying stream of dark red dragon breath gathered in her mouth, forming a thick pillar of fire. She blasted it towards the 3 soul-snatching death scythes. Chapter 89. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Circle her and take her down, point one of the Soul Reapers said, his voice like ice. He was astride a nightmare beast, a towering behemoth over 30 feet tall, and he swung his massive scythe. A wave of terrifying undead energy surged forth, but he seriously underestimated the lethal beauty of Faloo. She was a legendary black dragon, blessed with a priesthood. Her strength bordered on that of a demigod. Within Grumsha's ranks, she rivaled only the angel Julia and the dark ancient tree Kareem. Even the Black Moon Elf clan leader was weaker, because Aluni hadn't merged with a priesthood, despite being the first Black Moon Elf born from the Black Moon Elf mother tree and possessing unparalleled talent, that she still fell short of a black dragon empowered by a priesthood. The priesthood's power was simply beyond legendary. Boom! The impact was deafening. Though the dark red dragon breath was overwhelmed by the undead energy, it still managed to neutralize the majority of it. The blast slammed into the unprepared Soul Reaper. He was knocked clean off his nightmare beast. His cloak dissolved, revealing a crimson skeleton, now scorched and fractured. One hit had severely wounded a legendary Soul Reaper. Damn! How is this possible? The spider goddess gasped, incredulous. How could this black dragon be so powerful? To cripple a Soul Reaper of equal standing with a single blow? A wave of dread washed over her. Even with 7 legends on their side, she feared. Cursed boss, that the god of reproduction roared, unleashing the female saint. Hadn't he said there was only one legendary bone dragon? Hadn't he guaranteed victory? But what was this? 4 legendary bone dragons. And an even more terrifying legendary black dragon. Damn it all. He dragged him into a divine war against a god this powerful. His eyes, bloodshot and wild, remained glued to the battlefield, nearby. Roar! Roar! The 8 legendary bone dragons clashed, foregoing dragon breath. These creatures were surprisingly immune to its effects. Instead, they engaged in a fierce aerial brawl. Their bone wings, harder than steel, collided with savage force. Sparks showered down. Claws slashed and tore at the air. The terrifying undead aura threatened to shred everything. Each tailswipe generated a sonic boom. The sky was a chaotic spectacle of monstrous combat. Deafening roars echoed all around. On the ground, Yaman watched the 9 epic-level Fright Knights charge with feverish anticipation, adrenaline coursed through his veins. Die, all of you! With a thunderous roar, he broke ranks and charged towards the Fright Knights. Towering like a small giant, he loomed over the Fright Knights. He swung his axe, bringing it down with devastating force. A streak of bloody lightning split the air. The lead Fright Knight was utterly annihilated. His body was cleaved in 2 mid-stride. Ha ha ha! Ayman bellowed, his giant axe weightless in his grasp. He slashed horizontally, vertically, every which way, unleashing a flurry of axe techniques, that he completely overwhelmed the remaining 8 Fright Knights. Meanwhile, 1,000 Berserker Knights surged past. They showed no mercy to the orcs, dark elves, and snake men in their path. Despite the shared ancestry with some, their eyes burned with savage intent. Boom! The Berserker Knights crashed into the orc ranks. Blood erupted, and bodies flew. The charge was unstoppable. One by one, the orcs cried out in terror, forgetting the commands of the dark elves as they scattered in panic. How could they possibly stand against such a force? These warriors, though seemingly of their own kind, were too terrifying. They were too scary, so tall. So fierce. Boom! The Berserker Knights plowed through the orc army. The ground was littered with corpses, the ground was soaked in blood. Fire! The dark elf priestess screamed. Her eyes were fixed on the advancing knights. Before her, a wall of snake men, shields interlocked, stood trembling. Fear gripped them, but the oracle of the great god was law. They dared not disobey. Everyone knew the dreadful consequences of defying the god of reproduction's commands. They would not only be brutally executed, but their families and even their entire tribes would suffer the same fate. Fear was the bedrock of their devotion to the god of reproduction. Whoosh! Whoosh! A hail of dark elf arrows rained down on the Berserker Knights. The air crackled, a chilling sound echoed. Ha ha ha! A rain of arrows. The Berserker Knights grinned, their bared teeth glinting menacingly. A wave of bloody, malevolent energy erupted from them, from the inside out. Skill, bloodthirsty killing. Boom! The 1,000 Berserker Knights, all unleashed the same skill. A thick cloud of blood coalesced above them, an aura of pure evil, making onlookers tremble in fear. The arrows struck the cloud, but were weakened layer by layer. Before they could penetrate halfway, the arrows became feeble and were easily deflected. Kill! The earth-shattering roar echoed across the battlefield. The eyes of every Berserker Knight glowed with a bloodthirsty light. The faint silhouette of a bloody arrow materialized around each of them. 1,000 bloody arrows, 1,000 Berserker Knights enveloped. Then, the shadows merged, forming a colossal bloody arrow, encompassing the entire charge. Skill, violent charge. Boom! The speed of the Berserker Knights spiked instantly. The bloody arrow left a long, spectral trail in its wake. In the blink of an eye, they covered 500 meters. Boom! The snake shield wall crumpled like paper. The bloody arrow sliced straight through. Limbs and blood rained down, filling the air. Behind them, the silver centaurs drew back their bows. Fire! Kingsley commanded, and 1,000 bolts of silver lightning flashed across the sky. Soaring over the Berserker Knights, they found their marks with deadly accuracy. A dark elf fell, each shot true. Every arrow found its target. No silver centaur's shot overlapped with another. Every single dark elf fell victim to their flawless archery. Kingsley and Pope looked on, satisfied. The two narrowed their eyes. A dazzling light ignited on their own bows. 2 long silver arrows sliced through the air. Faster than lightning, they struck the heads of 2 Fright Knights. The undead energy was no match as the arrows pierced through. The heads of the 2 Fright Knights exploded. Roar! Ayman roared in protest. His axe swept out, scattering the 2 remaining Fright Knights, and the Berserker Knights had now crashed into the Dark Elf lines. Clan leader, on the other side, Bibina stared at the battlefield, stunned. It seemed they weren't needed after all. Stay put. Eluni commanded. Then, with a subtle shift, she took to the air, heading towards the bone dragon melee. As she approached, a surge of dark energy began to coalesce. A moment later, overhead, a black meteorite, hundreds of feet in diameter, hurtled towards the earth. Blazing black flames enveloped it. Its target, one of the legendary bone dragons. Holy crap, Theodore's soul fire flickered wildly, he scrambled out of the way. In that instant, the meteorite slammed into its intended target. Boom! The sound was deafening, the legendary bone dragon cried out as he was driven from the sky and crashed to the ground. Bones shattered, and soul fire flickered, he was down. Scary. Theodore glanced at the impassive Aluni and shivered, then, with a maniacal laugh, he joined his brothers in finishing off the remaining three-headed bone dragon. Dark Elf City, in the realm of gods, the spider goddess Bows was ashen, defeated. She had actually lost. And the defeat was so absolute. She had no chance to fight back at all. Her 7 legends had been wiped out. How could a follower of the god of thunder be so terrifying? No. I can't lose. She gritted her teeth. What would happen if she lost? Death. With a sudden thought, she fled towards the city of gods. Jeremiah, you have to help me. He is a true god. Chapter 90. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Okay, that's intense. Up in the divine realm, Liu was watching Aluni lay down some serious magical hurt, straight up vaporizing a legendary bone dragon. He had to give it to her. The raw power of a caster was on full display. Aluni, at the legendary level, was throwing around attacks that were almost god tier in their devastation. Sure, it took a minute to wind up, but with someone to cover her, she was basically an unkillable fortress of destruction. The master's the real deal, he thought. Once we get more Black Moon elves, we absolutely have to put together a mage army made up entirely of Black Moon magisters. Just imagine that kind of firepower. Just the thought of it made Liu feel like it would be unstoppable. I mean, these spellcasters could work together on spells. Of course, it's not easy, but the Black Moon magisters were all from the same bloodline, and with Aluni leading the charge, they'd be totally capable of some serious team-ups. They could even draw massive magic circles beforehand to boost their power even more. No one in their right mind would want to face that. This round's almost a done deal. Just hoping that true god of the undead doesn't try to pull any more crap. He muttered to himself, even though it was just a hunch, that the spider goddess was backed by the true god of the undead. He didn't have any real proof, but seriously, how many undead true gods were out there trying to mess with him? It had to be that guy. She's probably scrambling for backup right now. He kept his cool. Either way, the spider goddess was in over her head in this god fight. Even if the true god of the undead hooked her up with a few ghost dragons to stomp his followers, the spider goddess was going down. Then, boom, the purple lightning storming the divine realm just stopped. Liu stood up, slow and steady, his eyes glowed with that same violet power. Feeling his own body and soul, jacked up to a whole new level, a satisfied grin spread across his face. 6th turn. 6th turn demigod, right at the peak of silver demigod status, just a hair's breadth from hitting golden demigod, and a golden demigod was pretty much qualified to spark their own divine fire. Of course, lighting the divine fire at the 7th turn, even if they get lucky and become a true god, they'll be the weakest god out there, that kind of god. They'd be painting a target on their back for groups like true god hunters. True god hunters, that's what they call themselves. They usually go after the low-hanging fruit, and they've had some serious success, which just goes to show, firing up the divine spark at the 7th turn is a recipe for ending up at the bottom of the food chain. Nobody wants to be the runt of the litter, so, usually, if they aren't flat broke or can't master a priesthood, most golden demigods will wait to ignite that fire until they hit the 7th level. It still means they are qualified to ignite the divine fire, and that's miles above the 6th rotation. Not long till the 7th turn. My divine power's solid, and I'm in control of my priesthood. Give myself some time to adjust. Finish this god war. Then it's full steam ahead to that 7th turn. Liu said quietly. He wasn't trying to rush this. Slow and steady, every step had to count. There was no room for screwing around on the path to godhood. She lost. In his gloomy villa, the true god of the undead, Jeremiah, looked like death warmed over. He was furious. This was strike 3. 3 tries, all blow up. 8 legendary bone dragons down the drain, plus 3 legendary soul-stealing scythes, 9 epic shock knights, a level 3 professional altar, 2 level 4 ones, and over 15 drops of divine power down the drain. All in, that's gotta be worth close to 100 drops, and even for a true god, that hurts. Hundreds of drops were a chunk of change. After all, he had only been a true god for less than 2,000 years, the accumulated divine power was not too much. Give me a ghost dragon at the demigod level, and I guarantee I'll win, that the spider goddess blurted out, looking all pathetic, eyes pleading. A ghost dragon at the demigod level. Jeremiah gave her a death stare. You got any idea how much divine power it takes to raise a ghost dragon to that level? No. Not really. The spider goddess mumbled, she hadn't ever thought to ask. Demigod-level followers were way out of her league, that was true god territory. In God's city, you've got trillions of demigods, but how many of them have followers at that level? Maybe 500. Tops. She knew her place, she had no illusions about raising demigod followers, so, she never bothered to ask. Raising a legendary believer takes at least 5 drops of divine power. But a demigod? At least 50 drops, minimum. Jeremiah's voice got colder and colder. 50 drops, that the spider goddess felt like she'd been punched in the gut, that was insane. But then she remembered a rumor she'd heard and stammered, I heard you can sometimes buy clergy for dirt cheap. Like 20 or 30 drops of divine power. She didn't need to spell it out, why not spend 20 or 30 drops and buy the priesthood? Then give it to one of your followers. Wouldn't that be cheaper than 50 drops of divine power? Idiot. Jeremiah looked disgusted. Those priesthoods are all leftovers from dead true gods and full of their messed up will. Anyone who ain't a demigod who tries to fuse with them will probably go nuts, get twisted, or just straight up die, leaving both the priest and the believer screwed. Unless the will has been totally erased over time. But those kinds of priesthoods are so rare, you can't even plan for them. And that's not all, he kept one little detail to himself. The value of the priesthood varies wildly, those priesthoods worth 20 or 30 drops were the bottom of the barrel, some powerful priesthoods like tides, jungles, or the racial priesthoods of different tribes were worth 10, or even 100 times more. Oh. The spider goddess gave him her best puppy dog eyes. Jeremiah didn't even flinch, he pulled out a gray divine card from his pocket, it had this gnarly gray magic circle etched on it, filled with that same dull, gray light. This is a teleport god card, made by the true god of the space system. It'll let you teleport your whole divine realm to some random spot within 3,000 kilometers. Then he pulled out another divine card, all dark and shadowy. This is a hidden god card from the true god of darkness. It'll cloak your divine realm so no one can find it unless they're a master of stealth. Teleport god card. Hidden god card. The spider goddess's eyes were glued to those cards, breath catching in her chest. For a demigod like her, those were lifesavers. You want them? Jeremiah's voice was ice cold. Give me the coordinates of your divine realm. And these 2 cards are yours. 3 strikes, 3 fails, he'd bled too much divine power, he was starting to think these demigods were just a waste of space, he might have to do this himself. Yeah, invading the immortal continent would cost a fortune, but the night elf mother tree of the middle elf, that plant that was about to bloom, he'd pay any price. My divine realm's coordinates. The spider goddess hesitated, a demigod's domain coordinates were their biggest bargaining chip with true gods, keep those secret, and you're mostly safe, but leak them, and your life's in the other guy's hands. She was a survivor, without these 2 cards, she'd be toast in a minute, so, to stay alive, she'd hand over those coordinates to Jeremiah in a heartbeat. And, let's be real, she knew what he was after, the god of thunder was his target from the start. Deal. Boom. The ground started to shake, the Thunder Legion swarmed into the Dark Elf city, the orcs, snake men, and Dark Elf captives left alive on the battlefield, were picked up by the arriving human army. Flying high on his bone dragon, Theodore got a whiff of undead energy nearby. It wasn't strong, but he still picked it up. What's undead stuff doing here? His soul fire flickered. He turned around and flew to where the energy was coming from. he quickly spotted a pile of skeletons, and smack in the middle of them, was an ancestral temple. An ancestral temple. An undead god, maybe. Theodore's eyes lit up. Without hesitation, he prayed to the great god of thunder in his heart. My great lord, your humble disciple Theodore has found a false god of the undead.